So hello and a warm welcome to you all. My name is Mark Morley and this is the IT Business Partner Playbook, a new series where I'll be joined every week by business relationship managers and business partners from around the globe. We'll be discussing their career paths, their skills and some of the successes that they've enjoyed throughout their career. I hope that this series will inspire others to consider this role, and for those who are already in it, it will lend a helping hand to overcome some of the common and maybe not so common challenges. In our last episode, we met with Dalizu Buthelezi, a business relationship manager at the South African Reserve Bank. Dalizu, like some of our other guests, found himself applying for the BRM role, having never really heard of it before. He was attracted to the fit with his personality and with his capabilities, and he's flourished ever since. Dalizu shared some great tips on where to focus in order to develop the role and how to raise the profile at BRM. He also made a point of expressing how important it is to remember your IT colleagues, which is something maybe some BRMs forget to do. So rather than focusing too heavily on the business functions, it's good to remember where you came from. Today, I'm joined by Mehana Gupta, a technology business partner at Nomad Foods. Mehana has worked for a number of BRM and IT roles over a decade and has experienced a wide range of organizations. So I'm really keen to hear how the role has varied and what, if anything, has remained the same. So Mehana, welcome to the podcast. Thanks so much for joining me. Can I ask you to give us a brief introduction before we tuck into a healthy portion of your BRM know-how?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me here, Mark. I would correct you. You might have to edit this portion. It's Meghna Garg. I know the email is Meghna Gupta, but professionally.
I'm sorry. I even researched it to make sure I was getting the pronunciation right. So I did that wrong. My apologies.
It's a great opportunity to be on this podcast, Mark. So thank you for reaching out. And I'm looking forward to sharing my journey and my experiences of being a BRM or a business partner. I come from India. I've grown up in that country. But having said that, I've lived in UK for close to 20 years now, and it feels like home. I started my career journey into working into IT as a software engineer, moved into business analysis, but I was always fascinated by the business aspects of any organization. Instead of just sitting behind the scenes and creating programs, software programs to deliver something, my interest and excitement sparked more from understanding the business need, what their path looks like to get them to their mission, vision, to their goals, and how could technology enable it, make it happen. And that drive internally helped me to make a move to business relationship management. When I first did the role, it didn't used to be called business relationship management. The role was usually in organizations at the time would either be business application manager or business systems manager. There was a much heavier element of service delivery as an application or systems manager, still working alongside the service and the IT operations team hand in hand. But over the years, the role evolved to business relationship management or business partnering. It's interchangeably used nowadays. And I have really enjoyed that transition. I'm a very people's person. I love building relationships. So the role just sits within the core for me from that perspective. I think it's a role that anyone who enjoys ambiguity, enjoys fluidity, interacting with people, different personalities, adapting their communication, influencing styles, and spinning lots of plates at the same time. And you can be having strategic conversations with exec leaders and C-suite in the morning, and you can be in the weeds resolving an escalation, bringing right people to resolve that escalation as well in the afternoon. So as a BRM, you do have to be comfortable with both aspects and interchangeable aspects of the role as well.
Right. When you were starting out, because BRM as we know it is kind of fairly recent, I guess from 2013 or so, before then, obviously the business partner or BRM role existed, maybe with a different name. As you were coming through those roles and you're in these roles that were kind of more people focused, how did you know what to do? What were your colleagues doing? How did you know that it was kind of a more people or relationship based role? Was there any guidance you were following? Was it management that were leading this?
I think it was just flowing through it, looking at what was required from the role at that moment. Of course, there was a direction from management and the leadership in terms of where they saw that role. And when I think of my early days into the role as a business application manager, my remit was you're responsible for the specific business lines and any application that they use, whether it is a new application that they might want to explore from a change delivery transformation perspective, or whether it is their existing applications. Everything is within your remit. But of course, what's not in your remit is day-to-day operations of it. So you will work with the right people to make sure that they have the context of the business and why something is urgent, and manage that communication to the business as well. So the role was, I would say, I started as, at the beginning, I was like, okay, it's a combination of, we used to have service delivery managers, but still our service delivery managers would be most organizations would have them technical focus, right? That's their role. They know the technology, and their main focus would be being within the technology. They are amazing technical people. However, the context of the business, the wider context of the business would be missing for them. But that's just with the nature of how organizations function, and also the core measures of success for the role as well. So I think one of the key things was understanding the business and be that person, even though within technology, who would be able to share the technology insight with the business, but at the same time bring in why something is important for a business. For example, if an external website is down, why is it such an urgent priority? Why, even though the rest of the business might not see it as, oh, that's really critical, why is it a priority for a certain part of the business? What is an impact to the business? Yeah. And that is bridging that gap was quite critical, because then our service and operations team could understand when someone is at their neck trying to get these resolved when they've got 20 other incidents to look at, rather than, oh, there is someone at the top who wants this done and creating a noise. They could actually get context of why someone is creating a noise. And it's not who shouts the loudest, it's what is relevant to the business. And I think that's where it started. And then eventually the role evolved. So there would be different times of the year the role would focus on different aspects. So one thing I would say, if service is in a good place, a BRM or a business partner could actually focus on strategic, more exciting parts of the role. If IT service is not in a good place, then majority of the time, BRM would be the person turning up at the leadership tables, listening to why their laptop keeps crashing and why no one's doing something as fast as they would like it to be. And believe me, it's not a great place to be in when that happens, right? When you're the only person at the table trying to stand up for technology, but actually you know yourself that things could be better. But I think once service is in a better place, then the BRM, especially around the planning cycles, the part of the role that I enjoy the most is around when you start looking at what's upcoming for next year, 3 years, 5 years. Having those sessions with key stakeholders in the business, getting the top-down direction, but also bottom-up direction, and bringing the two together, doing some analysis to identify the capabilities and define the roadmap together. And then that's an exciting part of it. I don't know whether I've answered your question. I think I've gone into, I've flown into different directions. But
No, that's fine. I mean, it's interesting what you're saying there about operational versus strategic. And this is something that when we first started running these classes, the BRMs were getting really excited. Like, this is going to help us become strategic now. This is what we want to do. We can go back now. We've got this new kind of information and now we're going to be strategic. But it's like, well, hang on a minute. Before you do that, you do have to make sure the operational side is sorted. And there's no point going to your business partner saying, take me to your strategy meetings if the lights aren't working, so you need to cover the bases. And I think that's where some BRMs and business partners come a little bit unstuck, is that they're trying to be something that they're not kind of, as a function, they're not ready for yet, because you do have to make sure those operational things are sorted. And I just wondered, from you worked in a number of industries, so I'm just interested to hear how BRM or business partnering has changed throughout those industries. Is there much that has remained the same? Was there much that's changed?
a lot of differences, and some of the nuances stay the same. But there are differences in how the role is perceived and what is the buy-in for the role in the organizations as well. And I'd love to say that I've chosen to work into a different sector every time I've made a job move, but it just happened to be, it wasn't a conscious choice, but it's one of the things that role provides is a BRM can work in any industry,
Right.
because they bring in the acumen to acquire the business knowledge quite quickly, and then apply all their BRM skills and transferable skills and technology knowledge and innovation to help the business move forward. But I think where I have seen it working exceptionally well is in my most recent role in FMCG.
Okay.
They have actually got there is a buy-in at all levels within the organization. There is also the structure around the BRM to enable me to actually operate at a strategic level. That doesn't mean that I don't get involved in operational escalations.
Sure.
I do, but I can bring in the right people and get the right focus to get that resolved. And I can at the same time continue to work on building the relationships, looking at the roadmaps regularly, do the analysis, focus on change and delivery transformation as well. And I think one of the and as I said before, if the operations are in a better place, if there is a trust in the business, that there is a focus on the operations, then only you can make that role strategic. And
You don't think there's anything about the consumer good industry that as men they've had to kind of advance their BRM role faster than maybe other sectors have?
I don't know, to be honest. I don't know why they had to do that. But I would also say they've probably created the role in a right way.
Okay.
So when I started being when I started my journey into business partnering, I started as a business application manager in energy utility, and I have seen the role there in my 3 years there evolving from application focus to relationship focus and strategic focus, and that was making sure that there is right structure around, but again you have to take into account the maturity of the organization as well, and maturity of the IT organization in the first place, and then maturity of the business organizations, because one of the hardest things when BRM function is initially set is for people and the leaders in the business to understand that actually you need to give the BRM the seat at the table. And a parallel I would draw is you'll find HR business partners and finance business partners in all the businesses, and they are embedded into the leadership. So technology business partners bring that from a technology point of view.
Right.
And all three are very different roles, right? Very different focus. And sometimes, majority of the times, I think the business partners have also have to have the confidence to own that seat at the table.
It's funny you mentioned the HR and finance business partner. So I've worked in finance myself. That's my background, and for a time I was effectively a finance business partner. I had parts of the business that I was looking after. I've worked in many of the businesses I've worked for. They've had HR business partners, and again, they've been people that are kind of dedicated to working with specific people or parts of the business. But it's funny that even though those role labels were around longer, I think that the IT business partner or BRM role now has kind of leaped over. So there's much more strategic focus in the IT business partners than there's ever been in the IT and the HR world. And they're only now beginning to catch up, I think. So it's quite interesting that the IT business partner was late to the party, but it's, I guess, having no legacy, it's been able to just kind of springboard and is now leading the way.
Absolutely. And I think it also helps with where world is moving when it comes to technology. I'm not a big fan of the word IT. IT to me, in my mind, straight away screams operations and keep the lights on, applications. But technology, I feel, is much wider. I think it helps when we have so much innovation happening in that world. We've seen over the years that no business could operate without technology. So it's not a support function. In fact, it's an enabling function. And that has helped, in your words, leap forward the technology business partner role and make it so much more strategic than the other business partner roles as well. And I think it's creating that right buy-in from the beginning. I think when the role, I think one of the other things is, if you have someone internally doing that role as a mix, but actually without setting up the clear direction for that role, there is a danger of business partnering role to never become truly strategic.
Yeah.
So the groundwork has to be done to set those expectations. So I would see like business partnering as it's being the change champions, right? And focusing on innovation, bringing new ideas, focusing on transformation, delivery, building relationships quite regularly, proactively. So that when the discussions are happening about the strategy and the roadmap, the business partner already has that relationship with the people in different parts of the business, including technology, to be the first one to hear about it, to be the first one to share their values and views about it as well. And a lot of these things happen on coffee side conversations before they take any shape and form as well to move forward. And also showing the value they're bringing, right? If I can have 10 different one-to-one meetings and turn up to the meetings, but if I don't create the value, if I don't demonstrate the value, I would quite quickly be dropped down the value chain. So I think that's critical.
Just going back to your mention of the executive sponsorship, I mean, that's where we see commonly where this all falls down. So if you don't have the right direction at the top, if you don't have the right awareness that's being generated by the leadership so that everyone in the organization knows what the BRMs are there for, they're never going to reach their potential. And in fact, if you have a change of a CIO or a change of someone senior the BRM team can quickly be wiped out because it doesn't become an organizational capability. You just have a bunch of BRMs that in many cases just become another silo. So I think it's so very important to have that executive sponsorship. And we continue to see that many organizations don't have that. Is that something you saw the Nomad Foods that is done very well, and maybe that's why it's working so well, and with the other consumer good companies?
Absolutely. I think my only experience in consumer goods industry is Nomad. So I can't talk about the other organizations. I can only talk about the other organizations from what I've heard from people who are rode in those organizations. But I think executive sponsorship is very strong in Nomad for business partnering, and that definitely makes a huge difference. And there is very clear direction to where it's led by business partner versus business partner brings the right person on board and takes the back seat, where it's sponsor-led, where the business sponsor has to take the ownership rather than a business partner taking the ownership as well. So for example, if there is and that's not just Nomad, it's in other organizations where I have experienced this role working effectively. It's a similar concept around, for example, if there's a large digital or transformation project going on, right? Business partner is more involved in early phases of shaping it, from the idea stage, exploring the idea with the business, shaping that, help them through the business case, get the approvals, get the right resourcing aligned from technology perspective. And then the business partner pretty much takes a background seat, right? It's more around, then the role becomes more around assurance and challenging. But back of the mind, it's always, okay, is the benefit realization going to be effective? Is it still in line with the business case? But if the project is getting delayed, business partner can help facilitate, bring right people to the table to have the right conversations for people to make decisions and move forward. But business partner is not the person who would be responsible and accountable for it. It would be the project sponsor whose responsibility it will be. So I think having that level of understanding, and one thing which I've learned over the years as a business partner, as a human, we all like to get stuck in, right? If something's not working well, okay, how can I move this forward, stuck in to it? But I think one thing I had to learn the hard way is when to step back. And let them do what they're good at.
Yeah, but a number of our guests on the show said the same thing, that and Martin, I think especially Martin Krangle, struggled, having come from such a technical background and knowing how to do this stuff inside out. When you see something's gone wrong and you know you can just go in and fix it, so you think it's quicker just to go and do it, but you really, as a BRM, you have to say, hang on a minute, I can enable this, I can coordinate and make sure the right people are involved, but I shouldn't just get involved myself and do it. So I know that is a challenge.
Absolutely. I think also we have to create the perception of our own roles, right? So it's not to say don't get stuck in. There is a place for getting the hands dirty, absolutely, when there's a need. But equally, if that's a norm on a day-to-day, then taking a stock check to go, have I taken it too far? Do I now need to come out of it and be in that strategic space?
Yeah. Who do you find of all the partners that you work with, who do you find is more challenging? Because we have comments about, the PMO, the project guys kind of struggle to work with the business relationship managers. Business analysts typically work very well, and that's sometimes people have come through that career path, so they've been business analysts and then BAs or BRMs. So that's maybe why they work together better. But are there any kind of functions or roles that you kind of struggle to work with sometimes?
Do you mean within the technology function?
Yeah, or any, yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess.
So I would say, I think, so when I've had project managers reporting into me, it has been easier.
Right.
Um, uh, but when the project management is part of the PMO function, and if they are traditional project managers who don't understand how the business partnering function works within the context of the project, definitely I found it took a time. It took longer to strike that balance.
Yeah.
And you're right, business analysts generally work quite well. But also because business analysts would be supporting a business partner with right level of details and analysis, identifying the depths of what the business needs, right? For example, looking at what is the technology capability in a particular business line, say HR or customer service, for example. What are the different technology capabilities available? And business partner can't go and do everything by themselves.
Yeah.
What they need is really good business analysis skills to work alongside them and with the business and the technology experts to build that capability map. But when it comes to project program managers, of course, because their role is to deliver the project or a program, they're responsible for it, to deliver it to cost, quality, and time. But where after shaping, when the project manager is aligned, that's where I have definitely found there could be friction for them to understand where the business partner is brought in, what is the value business partner is adding, and I think where it helps to set that scene if the business partner is on the steer curve for that program,
Right.
project, right? Because then project manager is responsible for the delivery, but then business partner is seen equivalent of the business lead or the business sponsor as someone who would provide the technology input and be responsible for making technology decisions at the project steerco level.
Yeah. Have you found that there's a reluctance or hesitation from the business to take ownership of projects that are IT enabled? Because I mean, for so long, any project that has any kind of IT portion to it is always assumed to be an IT project, and so IT are kind of expected just to manage it. But I can think of very few projects that are IT projects. Most of them are business projects with a technology element. But you still find that business are reluctant to take ownership for these things?
I think it again boils down to how it's set up and how expectations are managed. I agree. I fully agree. There is hardly anything which is just IT project anymore. Even rolling out laptops is a business project, right? So IT is pretty much an enabler of these projects, not the owner of these projects. Yes, there is still that challenge in some businesses more than the others, where business would be reluctant to own it, or they would be reluctant to own the technology delivery aspect.
Okay.
And part of it is also because probably they don't understand. They didn't know what is happening. It's big grey box for them.
Yeah.
Because it's not their area of expertise. And they're very competent people, but their focus is more on, if it's a sales and marketing, how can we generate more revenue? What is our sales pipeline looking like, right? So I think that's where the business partner role comes in really useful as well, because a lot of our technology people, and no disrespect to them, but they don't have bandwidth or many times the inclination to go and understand the business and talk to them in their language. they're focusing purely on how can I deliver this requirement.
Yeah.
And what business partner could then do is understand what is the key challenge for the business users.
Yeah.
Will this technology actually help them forecast their sales pipeline better? And then bring that perspective back into the technology. So I think that's where the role adds the most value.
Yes. Yeah, and it's interesting talking about language and jargon. I mean, it's very difficult, and I've seen all kind of psychology reports on this. That when you know something so well, it's very difficult to take your knowledge back to where everyone else is at. So if you advance in a certain thing, this is your normal. This isn't jargon to you. The way you talk is normal.
Absolutely.
Talking to someone else in a different field or a different practice, it's complete gobbledygook to them. So it's very difficult to expect people that are kind of embedded, ingrained in these things, to kind of understand what level they need to speak at. And that's again where the business partner is so good, because they are aware of what language the business is expecting, and they do know what language the IT speaks, and they are able to translate. And so that is such a vital role, I think. And
Absolutely.
I heard of it was a consumer goods company, large one. They said that the CIO comes in and delivers his bit at the board meeting, and when he leaves, they kind of look at each other and say, "What was he talking about?" And then this is the danger, because for him, this is just normal language for him, but for other people, and because they don't understand it, they don't have the confidence to question it, or even raise their hand. So this is where the challenge comes. This is where the big problems arise. It's because people are just allowed to do things because no one has the kind of confidence or don't consider they're kind of tech savvy to be able to question or ask about it.
Yeah. And also then, if the business partner has built good relationships, then those people could actually feel confident in having that conversation on site with the business partner. So I think one of the most exciting part of the role for me, apart from building relationships, is also the thought partnering part of the business partnering. So being a thought partner to your key stakeholders, right? And a lot of that work is done in the background, right? Business partner wouldn't get credit for it. So you have to be someone who is comfortable with being in the background and someone else actually getting the limelight for it. But once you have established the trusted relationship with the business stakeholders and experts, when they are thinking about something, if they come to me to go, you know what, I've got some thoughts and ideas, can we just go through this? What do you think, and how would you approach it? Can I have your inputs, or I need to share this with my boss, and but before I do, because I don't understand the technology innovation aspects of it in as much detail, can we just go through it? And it's the role evolves into coaching side of things, and it's amazing when it comes to that level of trusted relationship. Because I would always see business partner to be the first one to hear about even an idea brewing in someone's mind.
Yeah.
The first conversation that they do with is actually the technology business partner. That idea may have a lot of promise or no legs at all. It doesn't matter. But if that informal discussion happens with the business partner, that's where actually you've succeeded as a business partner to make it a trusted function.
As a business partner, how do you stay ahead of the curve? How do you kind of preempt what your partners are going to come to you with? Because the BRM needs to be a proactive role. We can't be reactive. So then how do you know, how do you personally kind of keep an eye on what's coming down the line to make sure that you're always one step ahead?
I think building those close relationships, right? I do have first thing I would do when I'm joining a new organization in the business partnering role is to understand my stakeholders and going to basics, interest and influence map. Right. And I wouldn't do it in the context of the project. I would do it much wider in the context of the organization. And then
Yeah.
start to build those relationships. So coffee chats, regular one-to-ones. So I'm always on the front foot of it. And I am firm believer it's, yes, work is work, but again, if I get to know the person behind the role, behind the face, then it's so much easier to just go up to their desk and talk to them, pick up the phone and talk to them. And they know they can do the same to me. So that is why I would know when things are happening. But also being included in the leadership teams, right? Then I'm hearing what they're discussing, what is their horizon looking like. And it's not just with senior leadership, it's also building the relationships with people on the ground, spending time with them to understand their pain points and then feeding that back as well. So it's a two-way street. And I think yeah, it's very fluffy if you look at it that ways, but unfortunately, that's the way, right? We're all humans, and if we feel comfortable with someone else, then we are more open to sharing where we're heading. But also, at the right time, creating opportunities to go to conferences with your business counterparts or organizing sessions to see what innovation one of your strategic partner or their products is coming up with. And then you're outside of your main office environment, and that's when you can interact around what could be upcoming.
Yeah. I think doing that thing really demonstrates to your partners you're working with, you do care about what they're doing. You do have a vested interest in it, and you are making it your job to kind of ensure that you are helping them as much as you can. So going to conferences, making sure you're aware of the latest things is clearly demonstrating to these people that you do have a vested interest. And so that helps build the trust and build your credibility because you know what you're talking about. So these are the things that I think are really critical as a BRM, that you kind of you do these steps to make sure that your relationship is as strong as it can be.
Absolutely. And I think you also have to look at where the industry is going, not just from technology perspective, but for example, in the delivery space, there's a big shift from waterfall to agile, and now it's even hybrid. And looking in the context of the organization, where could the organization benefit from it? Then how could you enable that? How could you sow that seed? Or moving from project or application focus to product focus mindset as well. Again, evaluating where organization is, how long is the journey is going to be? Is it actually the right direction for them? But you can bring in those sort of ideas back in as well.
I think that's why these BRM Connect events, the hosted ones, but also the informal free events, are so important because you get to mix with BRMs from various industries, various backgrounds. You can all share stories and ideas, and it's a really great way to be able to take new stuff back to your organization because, we all get used to the ways that we're working, and it's not until you hear how other people are doing things, there might be new ideas that would really work. And
oh yes, they definitely are a good value. And also just the comfort in knowing I'm not the only one who has these challenges, right?
Yeah, and that's really the basis of this podcast is to share these kind of experiences to let people know that they're not alone and that you're all facing these challenges. But then with that, there's a multitude of opportunities that you can kind of all take advantage of. So that's the great thing about this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Who have you in the companies you work for? Which kind of team has warmed to the BRM the most? Do you find support from the IT team or from the rest of the business? So do you think they're more ready to accept the BRM?
I think I would say at Nomad Foods, definitely there is a good synergy between BRM, the IT teams, the business teams.
Okay.
Um, and in other companies, I have noticed where a BRM would have to fight their way with the IT team, because many times IT team have their own priorities they're working towards, like the business is working towards their priorities, and being in the middle, you kind of understand both, but you do need to make sure that when there is a real need and a business escalation, then people are able to see it within IT and reprioritize. You have to help facilitate that, help make it happen. And sometimes in the past, I've had experience where it's not seen as a priority by IT, because they see it as, okay, unless there's a P1 or a P2, it's not critical to resolve it, right? And that is where the struggle as a BRM is, because you're the one who's the messenger of the bad news as well. And you don't want to project a negative image of your own team, right? Don't use the metaphor, don't wash your dirty laundry in front of the pile. But again, you also want to, as an individual, give your stakeholders the confidence that you could move things forward, you can make it happen, and learning to say no, right? That's massive as a BRM. We're not the yes people all the time. We can't be. So being comfortable in saying no with the right reasons, so it's done in the right way. But yeah, I think I have had times where I've had challenges with IT understanding why someone is just coming and asking me to expedite a particular business area's issue.
Yeah. If you had a magic wand and you could just, or have a wish that could make your role easier, what would it be? Thinking about what you're doing now or in previous roles, if there was just one thing you thought, if only I had this, my job would just be so much easier. What would that be?
Yeah. Oh, that's a hard one. Because I enjoy doing the roles. It's a very hard one for me to go, if I just have this magic wand.
Well, it could be a pair of earmuffs or a microphone. Cycle away.
Yeah, I would say an invisible cloak.
All right.
So I can be the fly on the wall in critical conversations without anyone noticing, and I can read the room and hear the whispers.
Yeah. Okay. So you'd like to be able to be a fly on the wall in these conversations.
Yeah, the ones where I can't have a seat at the table.
Yes.
Where I have a seat at the table, I'm all there. I would just want to be there, but yeah, the ones where I can't. Yeah, have those be like the Harry Potter with the invisible cloak, right?
Yeah. Okay, that's a good one. We're almost at the end of the time now. But as always, ask our guests if they could just offer some advice. I mean, you would like to have an invisibility cloak, but if there was something that you could do that's a bit more tangible or realistic, if you could offer some advice to your BRM or business partner peers just to help them in what they're doing, what would that be? What's helped you the most?
I think, be yourself, and be comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Okay. That's a good one. Yeah, because none of us are comfortable with that, are we?
No, but I think because the role requires that, and it's one of those roles you can't hide behind.
Right.
Anything. It's right at the front. If you're doing it right, if you want to do it right, if you want to do it in a strategic way, it's a very critical role within the organization. And So I always see it as I'm the voice of the technology into the business. I'm voice of the business into the technology. And having that seesaw balance is my responsibility. And yes, then I have to have uncomfortable conversations, whether it's this side of the fence or that side of the fence, to maintain that balance.
Yeah, I mean, I've been in meetings with BRMs where someone's walked in and they've walked out very stressed, because it is a high pressure job. I think some people don't realize when they go into these roles that you do have to have a thick skin. You do kind of have to be confident in yourself, definitely, because there are going to be very difficult conversations that you're going to need to be a part of. But if you've done your homework, if you've learned about the business, you've learned about your IT capabilities, that gives you or puts you in a much better position, at least.
Yeah, I wouldn't want anyone aspiring to be a BRM. I wouldn't want them to think that we don't, at least I particularly, it's not that I don't feel inside, oh gosh, I don't know much. Like preparation is the key, but equally, there are times where I go, you know what, I didn't know it. And it's okay not to know it, because I'm wearing multiple hats. I'm spinning multiple plates. I'm not an expert into the area. So it's okay to bring in the experts. And it's okay to buy the time to do that, as long as I follow it through. I don't want anyone to think, oh gosh, all of these people who are BRMs, they have magic powers and they can do it, they know it all. No, it's not like that. It's not that like we don't feel the flutters inside, right? So I want people to understand that they can grow into these roles.
Right.
And I've been a business analyst working on transformation programs where my world was just that transformation program, like it ends up being in most organizations, to then working on just specific projects, 2-3 projects at a time, and to just have a leap of faith and faith in myself that you know what, it's okay, I'll take on the whole business line. I'll take on 2-3 business lines, and there would be 30, 40, 50 different products, applications that I will have to at least have some level of knowledge about. And it's okay not to have the depth in every area.
No, that's wonderful. I often talk to people that are considering moving into BRM roles or are looking for other BRM roles, and they often come to me for advice, and I help them kind of look at CVs and what their experiences are. And they're often nervous about how much they need to know about certain things. So I think this kind of advice is really, really crucial for them. So I appreciate that, and I hope that they get a chance to watch this. So thanks so much for all the insights and sharing your experiences with us. It's been a real pleasure to talk to you. As I say, these podcasts are really a nice way to share the BRM world with the wider community. So I just hope that they find these things useful, and it helps them on a daily basis. So thank you to you, and thank you to our listeners, and we'll look forward to the next episode. Thank you so much.
And thank you for creating the platform, Mark.
Oh, it's been an absolute pleasure. And actually, I have to pass credit to Jeremy Byrne for that, because it was his original idea that he allowed me to run with. So thank you, Jeremy. Okay, thanks very much.